Welcome to episode 19 of the Reimagining Work podcast. In this episode, we've entitled Reimagining Performance, and taking perspective not reimagining performance, but reimagining how we look at performance and how we talk about performance in the workplace. Because it seems that there are some things that we use to describe performance and some ways of so-called measuring performance that I suspect have outlived their useful life. And I think it's time to reimagine and look at ways we might go forward with that.
I think we can all agree on the premise that people need to perform at work.
That's undeniable. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's get that out of the way.
Yeah, not challenging that. People do need to perform. Not like performing SEALs, which is what I think sometimes traditional performance management techniques sometimes lead people to think that's what they're being asked to do. But work is certainly about doing well, performing well, being effective. And I think one of the things that began to occur to me some time ago was this idea of performance appraisals was just a complete waste of time. And I don't think I'm exaggerating for me when I say complete waste of time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes around them that seems a little bit like a joke to some people. Well, quite a lot of people, really. I think I read something recently as well where a lot of people and their managers believe that managers aren't actually able to measure performance accurately. So it seems that it's a bit onerous to ask them to measure performance. And there were some structures of performance appraisals that I've kind of come across in various clients that I've worked with. They just seemed too formulaic and didn't take account really of humans' ability to learn and relate to each other and develop themselves. And they also very much seem to take a theory X standpoint, which, that Douglas McGregor's theory X, Y, way back from 1960. So it alarms me that people still haven't got hold of this. That the theory X, that people are inherently lazy, they don't want to do well, they'll do the minimum to get by, which I don't go along with. Theory Y being more that people want to excel, they want to do well, they want to do something that has meaning, and they want a sense of achievement. People are not inherently lazy. And I think a lot of performance appraisal processes that I've come across take that theory X standpoint, that people need the stick in order to be motivated, that they're driven by extrinsic motivation, and performance appraisals, as they are conducted by and large, seem to conform to that mindset that people need to be.
Isn't that mindset is I mean, obviously I have a tremendous experience in having performance appraisals done to me.
Yeah.
And I think obviously the amount of satisfaction you get out of your work, or the general happiness, which I do believe you can actually measure, but you go to an employee and say, on a scale from 0 to 10, how happy are you at your work? And he can say, or she can say, well, it's a 7. Well, there you measured your happiness. I might be oversimplifying things, but no, it's connected. I mean, if you are unhappy, then you would need a stick to get somebody to move. You would perceive somebody as lazy. You would know that he did only what he needed to do in order to get by in the next appraisal.
Yeah, I think that's part of the conversation too, about the context in which people are working. There may be some context, and I think then we reference some of the earlier conversations around command and control and that sort of thing. If you've got a system, an organizational system or culture where the rule is you get a flower to grow by pulling on it, if that's the belief system, then I can see then why people might feel that you therefore then need to have the external motivation. You need the stick and not the carrot. That's just the system that people are living in. So I think you can't divorce the system, the organizational culture and the policies and procedures from the need or lack of need for a performance appraisal. this is why I think it's just one part of the whole picture of engagement and happiness and satisfaction and performance. Um, I think if we just put performance under the spotlight, we're not saying that all the other bits aren't connected. I think that there's something that needs to be done around shifting the conversation though from performance and command and control to performance and effectiveness. Um, and I talk about it because I've had experiences as well of having performance appraisals done to me, and they're very much things in my experience that have been done to me, not with me. Latterly, I suppose I'm thinking of the last time that I was performance managed or praised. Um, it was kind of dressed up in very nice, friendly language, but it was a little bit like, you know, lipstick on a pig. It was the same process, but it was just done in a so-called friendlier way. Um, because I've worked in places where we didn't have performance appraisals, and I think when I had that experience years ago, the whole idea of needing to have a regular performance review was blown out of the water for me. And in fact, what did happen in this place was we had an annual conversation with the manager, um, but it was actually a really interesting document to complete. It was probably 5 or 6 pages of prose. So there were no tick boxes. It was open questions, and it was all around how we viewed ourselves in the workplace, how we viewed our own performance, how we viewed our relationships in the place. And the nub of the conversation that I then took that off to my manager and spoke about was, what are some of the things in the system, in the organization, in the culture, in the policies and procedures that the managers might look at adjusting or tweaking so that I would be happier in my performance and I would feel more satisfied. It had little to do with things I had done wrong, or areas of behavior that I need to change, or little to do with what I kind of hold as the performance appraisals that I'd had in my earlier career, which were more about me and what I had to do to so-called improve in order to fit the culture. And I thought that was quite a liberating thing, because very much it was a period of time, I imagine, when, well, knowing the manager I had at the time, I suppose he looked forward to the conversations because he enjoyed talking about, in a sense, it was feedback to him, talking about what things he could do to improve the workplace rather than things that he might direct me to do to improve myself. So I think this is why I kind of when I hear performance appraisal or performance management or performance review, I bristle a little bit, and I also question the notion that a person can be managed, because I kind of think then of, horses pulling a cart, or something that you would use a stick to get them to do
Well,
better.
I think that's maybe a little part of a terminology that you might use. You know, I personally believe that people should or could or can or must be managed up to a point. You need somebody that um, that helps you
Yeah.
on your way, and whether you call it managing or coaching or leading, but there
Mm.
has to be something, or there has to be some part in the organization where somebody can go to, can say, look, this situation I need to talk about
Mm.
it,
Mm.
this conference I need to get to, this
Mm.
course
Mm.
I need to do it,
Mm.
and if you leave all these things up to the individual, and I honestly believe it's a bit of a utopian idea where you have just everybody, you know, you choose the work that you want to do, and all those kind of things. I think it's pretty rare. I think at Semco they do that. You choose your work and you choose your pay, and that culture. And there's a couple of other companies that actually do it, but I think it's very rare.
I do too. That's why I think it's a conversation. That's why we're having the conversation now. It's an unusual thing, and then I think there still needs to be a reimagining in most organizations of how how they look at performance and how they get performance to keep going and to
Mm.
improve. Again, like you said at the beginning, this isn't about, we're not suggesting we don't need performance and we don't need good performance. In fact, quite the opposite. When you've set up a system where people can kind of predict what they're going to be what's going to be talked about in their performance appraisal. They can kind of predict what feedback they're going to get from their manager about what they need to improve. Um, it it says to me that there's a system that's just ripe for being gamed. There's a system that's just ripe for people to do the bare minimum. There's nothing in there that says, there's nothing for me, having, again, I'm talking in my own experience, nothing for me that says this is a place of excellent performance. One you mentioned Semco. One other organization that sprang to mind as you spoke was Morningstar, the tomato processing firm in America. I think they might be, if not the biggest, one of the biggest firms that processes tomatoes. And if you've ever used ketchup or eaten a tomato product in America, the likelihood is that you've eaten a Morningstar product. Now, they have a really interesting self-managed culture there. And at the beginning of their year, they don't have performance conversations or goal setting or any of that nonsense with managers. They have got, they have like it's like a social, there's like a social network, I suppose, of, in my job, there are certain people that I need to interact with in order to do my job well. And I have a negotiation, a conversation with those people about what they need from me in order for them to do their jobs well, and vice versa. So in a sense, because it's highly self-managed, they're having very mature adult conversations with their peers, recognizing that they're part of an intricate network, a complex network that relies on them and that they rely on. And they do the negotiations because actually they're one of the top performing businesses in their field, and they want to maintain that position. So again, it comes back to McGregor's theory why people want to excel, people do want to do well and
They
work
want to
for
win,
organizations. They want to win and they want to work for organizations that are winning as well.
of course.
And it's that thing of getting out of the way of people performing well. um, but it takes a big leap. It takes a leap of the imagination, I suppose, for a certain number of managers to think, how am I going to do my performance reviews? Well, maybe I take a bit of a leap. And I think that's what my manager that I spoke of before, I think that's what he had done. He had taken a leap and gone, this is how we're going to do things here, because in reality, there's nothing I can do to make sure that these people do their work well. I've hired some great people. Let's see if we can create an environment where I don't have to pull on the flower to make it grow. I've just tended the garden and the flowers are growing quite beautifully on their own.
The gardening metaphor.
The gardening metaphor again, yeah. I read years ago. I read one of the snappiest and most informative blog articles that I've read for a long, long time, and it was called "The Only Question a Manager Should Ask in an Appraisal." And the blog article consisted of one question. That was it. And it was, what stops you from doing a good job? I thought that's a beautiful way. And I kind of reflected back to my manager. It's a beautiful way of framing a performance appraisal when the focus is on the system and creating the context and the fertile garden. And the manager says, what's one thing that stops you, or what stops you from doing a good job? Opens up so many interesting conversations,
Yeah,
a bit like
yeah.
my manager did,
Mm-hmm.
where he gets information. I'm thinking of John, about what things could be done to improve the place, and that the doing the things that we wanted to happen, we were allowed to do, if you like. The space was created because we knew that there were certain policies or procedures or systems of working that would make our work easier or faster or better or more satisfying or whatever, and we were given the space to do that, which was
Mm.
quite revolutionary when I look back on it. For me, it just seemed like this is just the way that things got done. And it contrasted with some horrible performance conversations I'd had in my past, where instantly the conversation zoomed into what I hadn't been doing well enough. And I kind of thought, this is great.
I had one of the greatest um, appraisals of all time, and it was literally a phone call saying, "Why don't we meet at the restaurant close to your work,
Hmm.
and we'll have a beer, and I'll just sign um, your
Mm-hmm.
appraisal,
Mm.
and 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 then we'll just have a beer.
Mm.
There was no discussion. There was no talk. There was no checking. There was no uh, uh,
Yeah.
getting up to speed. There was no what if. There was no is there anything I can do. There is no questions. No, and at that time I wasn't utterly. I was not happy. Period. And so I was like, whatever, dude, whatever. Because I knew up front that I could not expect anything from him anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Even if
Mm-hmm.
we had a conversation for an hour, or if he would have asked me the question, what was the question? How can you do your job better, or
What? Yeah.
what do you need to do your job good?
It was. What's getting in the way of you doing a good job?
Exactly. Well, I could have written an epistle on that, and it would not have made an iota of difference.
Mm.
Not at all, nothing.
Mm.
So, as far as I was concerned, I mean, that was like the best way to do an appraisal because he wasn't going to get anything from me, and I was definitely not going to get anything from him. So, I might as well just have a beer and just call it a day.
Yeah. Right. And so that's what happened afterwards.
And that's so sad.
Yeah.
So sad. I know. I knew it was sad when it happened, and when I think back on it, it's still sad, and it's just. I mean, if you reach a point of that where you, as colleagues or as a manager and an employee, reach that state of indifference and apathy, you know, it's just
Mm.
like, why the hell do I get out of bed at all?
Well, precisely. Then, if you don't care, why should I care? Sort of
Yeah,
thing.
and
Yeah.
like the next is going to be next appraisal is not going to be better. It's not going
Mm.
to change anything. I'm not going to be motivated to do anything. You know,
Yeah.
I can work my ass off and still get only like 1%. You know, like
Mm.
back then they could we calculate blah blah blah. Yeah, you're gonna get this much, and I calculated how much that was in a month net. I
Mm.
said, oh, good. So I can buy one CD from the extra that you pay me
Wow.
in a year's
Wow.
time.
In a year.
After a year of
Jesus.
appraisal or whatever, then we get like an extra, or you go up. We didn't even keep up with the inflation of the economy.
Jeez.
So,
I mean,
so
there's another problem I think with the way that performance appraisals are conducted is that they get linked with pay and money and rewards and things, and I think that's a mistake as well.
difficult to separate, I guess.
It is difficult. I mean, I've seen it also in places. I mean, again, again, I can talk from my experience. I've seen this in other places where they separate the money conversations, money and reward conversations from the performance conversations, because when you put them in the same thing and you wrap them up together, there's the implication that your pay and reward is dependent on your performance improvement, that sort of thing, or that
Oh, with
if
us
you do
it
this extra
definitely
bit,
was. Yeah,
and I'm not sure that's always entirely useful.
I don't think so either, but that's how it was.
Well, looking at the other way around. If you, I mean, just to illustrate the example with the example you've given, and hearing the tone in your voice, if you calculate it, all it means is an increase in pay is equivalent to a CD. The other way around, well, where's the motivation? Because they have been linked, you see. Where is the motivation that's implicit to do anything extra? Because you've linked the two.
Yeah,
And this is why I think performance is a
it's not
separate
there.
conversation.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, see, I think
I
it's a
mean,
separate
you start
conversation.
out very enthusiastic and driven and all those kind of things, and then they uh, uh, slap you around the head with that. And the first time they have an excuse, and then it's this, and then it's that,
Precisely.
and then we actually had a year where they said, well, we have to freeze everything, and then oh, we'll make it up for next year, and then they come up with this, and and at some point you go, why would I why would I why you
Mm,
know I'll just do what I need to do. I'll show up. I'll make sure the client is happy,
mm,
and that's the bottom line. That's the only thing basically that's gonna happen.
mm, mm.
And yeah,
Well, you see, in this case, so like, how often would you say that your boss had conversations about your performance over a year, or was it saved up for the annual? We need to have a performance
Twice a year.
appraisal
Like you had
twice.
like a half year review and then
Right.
a year, and the year review would be the one that would the significant one where you get um, you know, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever.
Yeah. You see, this is again. I think this is part of the problem is that conversations about performance seem to be saved up, or they happen with such rarity that it seems an upside down thing for me as well. If an organization wants to improve performance, why aren't performance conversations being had all the time, all over the place?
That, especially when you work on projects, because you can do a review of every project, you know, and
Mm.
and with every project you can look back and say, well, how did you experience the project? Well, this and that and that. Were there things that you'd say that could be improved on the project? Ah,
Aha.
yeah, this and this and that. Ah, and did you have enough resources or whatever to do your job
Yeah.
properly? Or if you feel anything that you couldn't, what was it? Why did you
What got in the
run
way,
into
all that sort of
problems?
stuff.
Oh, this and that. Okay, I'm writing that down. And then the next project comes along, and then we can take that information and we can make sure that certain things you can change like that,
Sure.
right? I mean, it doesn't take anything. Just a little bit of effort can be changed. Some things you can change, not overnight. Takes a while, or you know, but then feedback, right? As a manager, you can say, well, these things take a little while, but we can take a look
Mm.
at it. I mean, or for something like, well, I've heard that from somebody else also, so we can take that into consideration, and and so
So
on
was
and so
there
forth.
was there some these were actionable things that came out of your project reviews? Was anything done about it afterwards?
No,
See, that's what I mean. It's that for me is a half conversation because it's like it's not been heard. There's been notes taken, but nothing has actually happened,
no,
which seems a little bit like going through the motions, a little bit like how I see a performance appraisal
no,
and
no. As
performance
far as I
appraisals.
was concerned, everything had to come from the employee.
Right.
So and usually the only thing that were certificates. That's it.
Hmm.
That's the only way they measured anything, basically, on the certificates that you got. So because
Uh-huh.
when you have a certificate, when you don't have a certificate, and I worked in IT, so when you don't have a certificate, you can't say to the client, "Well, we have a certified." Blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
The minute you're Cisco certified or Microsoft certified,
Mm.
we can add 25, 50, 75 euro per hour
Mm.
on your head. So I want you to be certified. I invest in that because I
Right.
that's a no-brainer ROI. Because the minute you're certified, I can ask 50 per hour, 25 per hour, whatever it is, extra. While otherwise, I would have to go lower on the price, maybe sell you a little bit more. But he's an all-round nice guy. He knows what he's doing. He's got a lot of experience. Blah blah blah. This and that. Yada yada yada. But if I have a certificate, if I'm certified, then I say like, oh,
Hmm.
he's certified,
Mm.
and poof, and you get like, and so that's the bottom line. And if
That's
that's
the
the
bottom
bottom
line.
line, then that's how they perceive you. That's how, I mean, it's like when you would be walking around. Like, did you ever play? No, you wouldn't have. But did you play the Sims, the game, The Sims?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's they have this thing above their head, and there's a movie of it also that's got, and it's about the book that I told you about Demon. When you have the end goal was to create glasses with augmented reality. You
Mm.
have those glasses, so my glasses know who you are, and above you, I get all the information about you
Sure.
that I need. Well, that's how they would have liked it to be when I was in the IT, because they would just wear the glasses and they look at you and they can see above your head Oh, you certified that, certified that, certified that, certified. Ah, dude, we need to talk. And if somebody would walk by and he had no certifications, he would like, you're not important. Goodbye. And
Mm.
I mean, that's how it went. It was, for me, it was very depressing because well, honestly, I'm not much of a study head, and at some point, I didn't enjoy it anymore, and you know. But you see how others are treated
Well, again,
when they
it
do.
comes what you're describing. Then it comes back to a culture where performance is a thing that's measured, and that if
Hmm.
it's measured, you can if it's measured that you that old idea if you know if it's if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, which I think is rubbish. And that performance in the place that you're describing was about things that can be measured. Well, the performance for me is about a whole bunch of other stuff. Performance is not about efficiency and tick boxes and things that are measured. Performance is about uh, how well do people collaborate and interrelate and share information and knowledge. You know, it's about effectiveness, not efficiency. Well, it's about both actually, but effectiveness has got to be part of the conversation.
Hmm.
So when you're in a workplace where the thing that they see is measurements, and therefore those are the things that we manage, those are the things that we talk about in performance appraisals, those are the things that we try and get you more measurable things. There's a whole part of the conversation I think that's missing
True,
in
true,
terms of
true.
it being an effective workplace, a satisfying workplace. You know, you could measure. I remember a story about a local government organization here that said we have a very good customer satisfaction measurement. The things that they were measuring were just wrong, but they had made that logical leap of we've asked these questions, and you have to ask things that are measurable only. Don't You can't ask things that are unmeasurable because that's too difficult. So did the repairman turn up at your door wearing a uniform, a tidy uniform, and did they smile when you opened the door? Yes, tick. So they had measured these bizarre things and then made the logical leap that we have good customer service. However, if you ask the customers, the ratepayers, the people in the community, are you happy with the service you get? It had incredibly low rating,
Hmm.
incredibly low information back. No, we don't have good service from our council. So, I mean, it was a very forward-looking manager who decided to revamp how they did things. But, you know, if you focus just on the measurables, you're missing a whole bunch of information out that I think is also related to satisfying
But it's
workplace
also
effective.
you're gaming your own system, right? I
Well,
mean
exactly.
that's kind of the. I just watched something about the smoking ban in New York, and like with everything, I guess, the guy who was like leading the charge against the non-smoking, or for
Mm,
mainly for secondhand smoke, they had this one research,
mm,
and that's what's their main weapon.
mm-hmm,
And that particular research was like completely debunked a year or a couple of years after, where they
mm,
said, well, they just came up with certain numbers. They picked the numbers they wanted in order to, and they've done so ever since
mm,
with all
mm,
those kind of things. And they just
mm.
pick the statistics that they can use or twist them around in a certain way, and then they, well, there you go.
Yeah,
This is it. This is
yeah,
the truth. And I guess
yeah.
that the same thing what they do with, like I said, with because when I started out in IT, it was not a big company. It was actually was good for you. Got a car, you got a computer, you got like your ISDN connection, you wore a suit, and I didn't study or anything. So for me, it was like I was wearing an overall, and then I was wearing a suit. I had to buy a suit, and
Mm-hmm,
it was like, what the hell?
mm-hmm,
But this company, the only thing it did over the period of the 2 years that I worked there was preparing everything so they would be uh, the the perfectly suited to be taken over, to be bought out by a
all
bigger
right.
company.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
So everything all the reorganization, the structure, and moving around of people. I mean, in those 2 years, I had 3 different managers, for instance, right? So you
Okay.
couldn't do anything. You couldn't get anywhere. You had all the basic certifications, all the basic training, da 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 da, and they just gobbled up people, got them everything, and then boop, 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 and they had the perfect pyramid. That also was their logo, by the way, and and it was just perfect. And then they sold the whole thing, and they went like goodbye,
Yeah,
and
well, yeah,
they leave you to it, and then you become another company. And that happened actually to me like 4 times actually. So by the end you're just literally just a number because
yeah,
they
yeah.
don't know how to deal with you
And
anyway.
they had a different purpose. Like when I think about,
Absolutely, and it
I'm
wasn't
thinking
about you.
it's not about you, but also that business that in that phase of its life that had a particular purpose, and it wasn't about satisfying customers. It was about getting itself ready to sell. I'm thinking
Exactly.
about businesses that, in an ongoing way, purport to be there for the customer, there for the client. And if you're going to be there for the customer and the client, I think you have to be there for the people that are working there as well. And the way that we look at performance, in that case you've described, they looked at things that they could measure because at the end of the day, the person who was buying it wanted the numbers. They wanted
Exactly.
that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as
Because
you
they
say,
looked at the
it's
books.
perfect. It's
Yeah.
perfect for gaming. And
Absolutely.
if you want to
Absolutely.
game something, you can game something. Absolutely,
Absolutely.
we know
Yeah.
that.
We got great performance reviews.
Yeah, because that's what they want to show. That's what they want to see.
Exactly, with
Yeah, for
everybody. I
sure.
mean, yeah, there's a couple of rotten eggs, but of course, but
But
in
then you show
general,
that. But in response, then again, it's a good one. And in response to that, then you show that you've got some good systems and processes in place to manage the rotten eggs.
exactly.
Again, it's a lot of effort, I think, for not much positive output. And by that, I mean satisfied customers who come back to you, who tell everyone you must go and use this company. That sort of thing it doesn't kind of generate that sort of thing, I believe.
No, 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 no. This is short term playing
Yeah,
the game.
yeah,
That
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's what happened, and the long term strategies, as far as I'm concerned, and many with me, they take a much more fundamental approach on how you deal with people, how you deal with your clients,
Yeah,
how you deal with structuring the business and the performance of people. I mean, these kind of things. I mean, it's you have to have a long term vision if you want to stay in the game for a long period of time.
sure. And I think that, I mean, vision, I think, is key. In terms of reimagining how we might look at performance. It starts, I think, big picture. What's the vision? What's your purpose? Again, people kind of quote Simon Sinek's "Start with why." There is a really big part of performance which is related to people understanding why they come to work, why they're doing the thing, this shared project together, why they're working for the same business. What's the common purpose? Because I think there is something that you can begin to evaluate performance, and people can go, well, am I helping the business to achieve this common purpose? Well, one, do I go along with it? And then am I contributing in some way to achieving this common purpose? And if I feel like I'm not, what are some of the things going on around here that might be changed? Because don't blame me, but what was it? Deming said blaming bad performance on a person is, or blaming bad performance on an individual. You could equivalent that to blaming the weather forecaster for having a rainy day, or something like that. It's a similar sort of thing. So, what's the common purpose? Am I contributing? What's getting in my way of doing that? Because I think it's more about what are the things in place around me that are inhibiting my performance. But again, maybe it's flight of fancy. I do tend to believe that people want to do well, and that motivation is largely internal in the first place, and external, well, I'm thinking of myself, is minimal compared to the internal motivations of wanting to do well and be satisfied and be happy and think I'm making a difference in some way, or that I'm not just on some sort of treadmill in my life.
People want to be want to have a meaningful existence,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
and especially the ones that think about it for more than 10 minutes
That's right. Yeah.
and turn off the television for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I really do believe that that emptiness that a lot of people can have is not very helpful, and most
No.
people would want to have a meaningful existence, and you can't get around the fact that you spend most of your time, your waking hours, at work,
Yeah.
and if that is not meaningful, it's empty, then it becomes very difficult to do anything, I guess. I mean,
And then it becomes difficult to find the energy to actually
because
do
it
well.
drains you. I mean, it
Yeah,
drains you, and then you get mopey in for starters, in the beginning, and then you take it home, and you go, I'm going to bed, or I'm going to have an extra drink tonight because this is
yeah,
just.
because it doesn't matter. I've just got work tomorrow.
And yeah, exactly, and then the weekend comes and you try and do something fun, but by the time you're relaxed, it's Sunday evening at 8. And that spiral is something that is very much enhanced when you have that cycle, that performance uh, um, evaluation where you are constantly reminded of the things that you don't do well, and you're constantly reminded of the things that a company doesn't do well,
Yeah,
because it's in a very old school traditional sense, and the way that I experienced most of my conversations, it's a lose-lose situation,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that is something that you desperately want to turn around. And if you're talking about reimagining performance, then I think performance should be a win-win situation where the employee performance is
Satisfying.
satisfying for the employee
Yeah,
to begin with,
yeah.
and the company has to perform as well, on a and not just financially, not just that the stakeholders are happy, um, but that they can say, well, on a scale to 1 to 10, how happy are you in your job? Well, I'm gonna give it an 8
Yeah.
today.
You see, the guy that took me for a beer, and it was a kind of a non-event, the performance thing, and he signed the paper. What do you imagine, on reflection, was behind his very, 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 very laid back attitude to that? What was behind it, do you think?
The avoidance of confrontation.
Okay.
I think that almost most definitely was the motivation for him.
Mm.
So, and that too was a two-way uh, thing.
That was a mutual
I
thing.
wasn't I wasn't I wasn't performing. I was just getting through the day basically.
Sure.
So there was definitely something that we could have had a discussion about. But he knew that as soon as he started something on me personally, I would turn it around like that and bring it back to him, and start about, dude, show me the fucking money and we'll talk.
So, how long do you think this had been building? I mean, I kind of I can picture the scene. Like, there's some stuff that he probably wants to address with you, and it doesn't happen. I mean, this is again one of my big problems with waiting
I'd
to
say
have the
years.
annual.
I'd say
Jeez,
over a period of 2 years, something like
two
that.
years.
Yeah.
So, see, this is one of the problems I have with the performance review as we currently imagine it. Is that these are conversations which are saved up. When I said earlier, this sort of effectiveness land that I inhabited when I was at that workplace that I described earlier, we're having performance conversations all the time with each other, and not in a kind of confrontational way, because it hadn't built up to the point where we had to have blood on the walls. You know what I
Isn't
mean?
it the same thing in any relationship that you have?
Precisely,
I mean,
precisely.
because Lila and I have been together now for 20 years, right?
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And Lila has learned that she should not bottle up whatever it is that is bothering her.
Mm,
And she used to do that amazingly.
mm,
And, it's uh,
mm.
the main reason for that I wasn't the best guy to start a confrontation with, because I could react
Uh-huh.
volatile.
Right.
And but the problem was, then she would not confront me because she knew that I would react a little bit of volatile. So she would keep it to herself. But she can only keep it to herself for that long. And at some point it comes out. It's inevitable.
Uh-huh.
But then it comes out in a way to which I react even
Which is not
more.
so helpful
Yeah,
for either
okay.
of you.
So,
Yeah.
so you have a choice either not to do the confrontation at all, and your relationship that just deteriorates even more.
Yeah. To the point
And
where she goes, "Look, just give me a piece of paper. I'll sign it. We'll go for a beer."
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Have our lawyers go for a beer.
Yeah.
But true, no, but that's the thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's when you get to a point where just doesn't um, it doesn't work anymore. And now the periods where she's keeping things to herself is dramatically shortened, and it gives me a chance to deal with things that I need to deal with. Because let's face it, 99% of the times that there's a conflict in our relationship, I am kind of the problem. But well, and
Look,
I always
this is
try and blame her, but it just doesn't work out.
this is yet again, all roads are leading back to that word social. The thing about doing work better is about developing those sort of social skills. And it's no surprise to me to hear that you guys, after 20 years, have got to a point where you can talk about stuff and it doesn't have to be inflammatory. I think people that hang in and they work on their relationship and they become aware of themselves and are open to learn from each other, are open to be affected by each other. I think that's a marvelous thing, and it's a natural thing that happens when people become close. These are skills that can be transferred to the workplace too, I believe.
Absolutely. But it's something that you really need to learn. It's difficult. For me, it was really difficult. It was a difficult process to get through, in order to learn and to stay calm and to accept the criticism. It didn't come easy.
Absolutely.
And if you avoid and avoid and avoid and avoid, it doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is. It really doesn't. If you don't confront, if you don't deal with the situation, it'll deteriorate into nothing, and you end up just signing a document and pretend that you're good colleagues and have a beer.
Yeah. And again, reinforces again for me, as a lens I see things through, the importance of learning these so-called people skills, so-called soft skills in the workplace today. Because I remember, if I can just move just for a moment into my old world of therapy, I remember when I was
I'll allow it.
doing some stuff around couple counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And couple therapy was that a good relationship, a partner relationship in your adult life, if you find a partner that's willing to stay and hang in with you, and vice versa, is potentially a healing response to some things that went on in your childhood. Which is why, if you do, there are certain kinds of couple therapy that you'll find that your partner has the best and the worst of both of your parents in them, if you kind of dig a little bit deeper. And some things that we learn, we are a complex system. So you may have learned that, when somebody give you some feedback, the best thing is to be defensive, because it's usually not going to be so helpful. We take that into our adult relationships and they're really not helpful. A partner who stays with you for 20 years gives you that place to learn some new skills of how do you relate to people as a healing thing from things we've learned when we were younger. Now, again, I think for people that pretend that we leave ourselves at the door at work, they're fools. We bring all of ourselves into the workplace. And so conflict avoidance by managers who are scared of having a conversation about performance
Shouldn't be a manager.
is one that they need to go off and do some stuff around how do I have difficult conversations with people, because if they can't have conversations about performance, or they perceive that they will be hugely conflictual, or they'll end up in a row, or they'll be unloved, they have got to get some serious stuff through their heads, because they shouldn't be in those positions. Exactly, this guy here built up for 2 years a conversation and then ended up just saying, I'll have a beer with you.
But we never had the conversation. Exactly.
And you never had the conversation. And one of my mentors that I learned from a teacher of mine is, it's best to have courage in the first instance than the 10th. Because if you leave a conversation, it festers, it builds up.
Oh.
In the first time I have an issue with you, I should be having a conversation. And I should have the courage to have the conversation in my first time and not wait for the 10th instance. Then I kind of, by this stage, I'm a volcano waiting to explode.
Exactly.
Courage in the first instance, not the 10th, is one of my mantras. And I think if
20 seconds, right?
on the people side of stuff, you've got to learn how to have these sorts of conversations and realize that it's not about you being unloved or having somebody raise their voice a bit at you. You've got to have the conversation.
Exactly. 20 seconds of courage.
20 seconds of courage.
I got that from a movie with Matt Damon, and it just stuck with me. It's 20 seconds of courage.
That's right.
That's all you need. It's what you need to open a conversation, to pick up the phone or walk up to somebody or whatever. It's 20 seconds. Right. After that, whatever happens, happens.
And in the first
usually
instance,
it's not that bad as you think it is.
Precisely, I was just going to say. And in the first instance, you need 1 milliliter of courage in the first instance. If you wait till the 10th instance and it's built up, you need 20 milliliters of courage, and that is hard. 20 milliliters of courage.
Normally, usually, you don't get to choose that moment, right?
That's right.
You don't get to have the courage to actually do it because you're forced into dealing with it, and that brings with it so much stress.
That's right.
Really not healthy.
That's right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is part of the whole thing about performance. It's how do we have conversations about performance all the time with all kinds of people all over the place. And exactly. I think if you've got a culture of performance where it's okay, we talk about performance, and it's not a personal, it's not an insult, but I want to talk about performance, how you're doing, how I'm doing, how we're doing.
Yeah.
And
not just manager to employee, right. But employee
right.
to employee. You do it horizontally also, because
that's
normally,
exactly right.
The employee goes into the office of the manager and they have a secret conversation that only HR knows about. Something else that they go like, what the fuck do they need to know about that? But, there you go. Only HR knows it because it goes into the files.
Yeah.
And files that obviously later can be used against you whenever it suits them. And that's it. And then you walk out, and then either there's a stone cold face, or usually there's no emotion because we can't share if it was good or bad because
privacy laws and
blah, blah, blah. Well, you don't talk about how much money you make, and you don't talk about who you voted, and you don't talk about how your performance went. So
that's right.
And
can I tell you a horror story? That what you've just described is the first step of a horror story, a real life horror story of an old client of mine, where stuff was said about somebody, employee to employee. Stuff was said, it was written down. More stuff was said, was written down. Of course, who was the person who didn't get involved in the conversation? Was the person it was about.
Yeah.
So what happened was, months down the track, it might have even been a couple of years down the track, this person gets noticed that they're going to have a formal process done to them. Why? Well, your performance is substandard. What? No one told me. Almost as if it was, and the implication being, well, you should just know. So all of this information was gathered about the person and contributed by other people, their colleagues, their manager, other managers, because what they were doing was stopping other. And this person is like a bolt out of the blue. Official performance management process was put into place by surprise. This person said, "Well, I'll do what I need to, but I'm taken a little bit aback by this." Through this, the motivation to stay at this workplace just drained away. Previously, she was really happy. The motivation drained away because suddenly there's this stuff going on about her that she wasn't party to, and all it would have taken was courage in the first instance, 20 seconds of that courage in the first instance to say, oh, hey, can I have a quiet word? There's just some stuff that's going on. But they just let it build up. Anyway, she left under a cloud. The employer was severely stung because it was an unfair dismissal because she was never told about this stuff. The unions got involved. Ooh. And it was only that caused them to think, maybe we need to be doing something about our managers having conversations about performance.
Well, at least they learned something.
They learned something, and actually it turned the place around. But, really sore.
But
Left
not
really
before we ruin
sore.
you. Yeah.
Not before we ruin you and we damage ourselves and we give ourselves a bad reputation in the eyes of the unions. So yeah.
Which takes years to build back up again.
Yeah. Anyway,
So, in conclusion,
in conclusion,
performance is something that
conversation.
happens all the time,
Yeah.
is to be talked about all the time
Yeah.
by everybody, anywhere.
With everyone,
With
and
everyone.
develop the ability and the courage to have
And
the
not by
conversations.
everyone, but with everyone.
With everyone, yes.
Yeah.
Make them mutual.
Yeah.
Not
true.
just let me take you for a beer and sign this piece of paper.
True.
Yeah. Good.
Nice.
Nice. So until our episode 20.
Episode 20, milestone.
Milestone.
Woo!
Until episode 20, we'll say farewell. And if you've listened this far, thank you for listening. And we'll speak to you next time.
Yeah. Please go to rwcast.com and subscribe to our newsletter or whatever. And don't miss an episode ever again. Thank you and goodbye.